I should have known something was wrong when Presley started crying at Dad's bedside. Real tears, not the crocodile ones she'd perfected over the years. But I was too exhausted to think straight after 2 years of round-the-clock caregiving, surviving on 3 hours of sleep and instant coffee. My name is Brooke, and I'm the daughter who gave up everything to save a father who was already lost. "Oh, Norman, my darling," Presley sobbed, clutching his skeletal hand. "I can't bear to see you like this." I looked up from the medical chart I'd been updating, tracking his medications, his fluid intake, his pain levels, and watched my stepmother's performance. Where had she been when he'd fallen in the bathroom last month? When he'd forgotten my name for 3 terrifying hours? When he'd cried because he couldn't remember Mum's face? "Brooke's been such an angel," she continued, not looking at me. "Sacrificing her career, her savings, everything for you." Dad's eyes found mine across the room. Even through the morphine haze, I saw something flicker there. Recognition? Maybe gratitude? Maybe something else. "I should call Jonah and Daisy," Presley announced, already reaching for her phone. "They'll want to say goodbye." "They had 2 years to say goodbye," I muttered, adjusting Dad's pillows. "What was that, dear?" "Nothing." I'd learned not to fight with her. Not anymore. Every argument was ammunition she'd use later, proof that I was the difficult one, the ungrateful daughter who couldn't appreciate all she'd done for our family. Our family. As if she hadn't swooped in 3 years after Mom died, when Dad was vulnerable and lonely. As if she hadn't immediately started redecorating the house, erasing every trace of the woman who'd actually loved him. The doorbell rang. Presley's children had arrived. "Uncle Norman," Daisy's voice carried up the stairs, bright and cheerful as always. She'd never dropped the uncle thing, even after Presley married Dad. It kept her at a comfortable distance, I suppose. Close enough to inherit, far enough to avoid responsibility. Jonah appeared in the doorway first, his suit immaculate despite the late hour. "How is he?" "Peaceful," I said. "The hospice nurse was here this morning. She said—" "It could be any time now," Presley interrupted, fresh tears streaming. My poor, sweet husband. I wanted to scream. Where was this devotion when he'd asked her to drive him to his doctor's appointments, when he'd needed help getting dressed, when he'd begged her to just sit with him and watch the old movies he loved? But Daisy was already at his bedside, holding his other hand. "We're all here, Uncle Norman. You don't have to fight any more." Dad's breathing had grown more laboured in the past hour. I'd seen enough of this process to know we were close. I moved closer to the bed, my hand finding his shoulder. "Dad," I whispered. His eyes opened, surprisingly clear. He looked at me, then at the others crowding around his bed. His mouth moved, but no sound came out. "What is it, darling?" Presley leaned in. "What are you trying to say?" Dad's gaze fixed on me again. His lips moved more urgently now, and I bent down until my ear was inches from his mouth. 8, 7, 4, 9. His voice was barely a breath. 2, 1, 1, 7. Numbers. He was giving me numbers. "Remember," he whispered, his grip on my hand surprisingly strong. "Remember, Brooke." "Dad, what?" But his eyes had already closed again. His breathing slowed, became more irregular. The hospice nurse had warned me about this part, the final hours when the body begins its last surrender. "What did he say?" Presley demanded. "Nothing coherent," I lied, though I wasn't sure why. "Just mumbling." The next 3 hours passed in a blur of whispered conversations and forced vigils. Presley, Jonah and Daisy took turns holding Dad's hand and sharing memories that sounded rehearsed. I sat in the corner chair where I'd spent countless nights, watching his chest rise and fall with increasing difficulty. At 3:47 a.m, Norman Gray took his last breath. Presley's wail filled the room. Daisy sobbed into Jonah's shoulder, and I sat there, dry-eyed and hollow, replaying those numbers in my head. 8, 7, 4, 9, 2, 1, 1, 7. What had he been trying to tell me? The funeral home smelled like lilies and lies. I stood at the back of the chapel, watching a parade of people who barely knew my father offer their condolences to Presley, who played the grieving widow with Oscar-worthy precision. "Such a tragedy," Mrs. Henderson from down the street whispered to her husband. "And Presley's been so strong through all of this." Strong. Right. While I'd been changing Dad's bed sheets and crushing his pills into applesauce, Presley had been staying strong at her book club meetings and spa appointments. "Brooke, honey." Presley appeared beside me, her black dress perfectly tailored, her makeup flawless, despite the tears she'd been shedding all morning. "People are asking about you. You should come say hello." "I'm fine here." "But they want to thank you for all you did for Norman. You were such a devoted daughter." The past tense hit me like a slap. Were, as if my role in this family had died with him. Jonah approached with a small group of Dad's old business associates. "These gentlemen wanted to express their condolences," he said, his voice appropriately somber. "Norman spoke of you often," one of them said to me. "He was so proud of how you cared for him." "Thank you." The words felt foreign in my mouth. When had I last had a real conversation with anyone outside this house? "And Presley," another man continued, "what a blessing that Norman had you to lean on during his final years. Such a devoted wife." I watched Presley's face transform into the perfect mask of grateful sorrow. "Norman was my world," she said softly. "I just wish I could have done more." The hypocrisy made my stomach turn. I excused myself and found refuge in the bathroom, splashing cold water on my face. In the mirror, I looked like a ghost, pale, hollow-eyed, wearing the same black dress I'd bought for Mum's funeral 6 years ago, because I'd spent my clothing budget on Dad's medical supplies. When I returned, the service was ending. People filed past the casket, and I took my turn saying goodbye to the man who'd raised me, loved me, and whispered mysterious numbers in his final moments. Back at the house, the reception was a blur of casseroles and small talk. I moved through it mechanically, accepting hugs and murmured sympathies while Presley held court in the living room, surrounded by admirers praising her strength and devotion. "She's been incredible," I heard Daisy tell someone. "Mum sacrificed so much to care for Norman. We all did, really." Sacrificed. The word echoed in my head as I watched Daisy's perfectly manicured nails gesture dramatically. What exactly had she sacrificed? Her monthly shopping trips? Her weekend getaways? By evening, the last guest had left. I was loading the dishwasher when Presley entered the kitchen, her funeral mask finally slipping. "Well, that went beautifully," she said, pouring herself a glass of wine. "Norman would have been pleased." I'm sure he would have. "Brooke, we need to talk." She sat at the kitchen table, her tone shifting to business-like efficiency. "About your living situation." My hands stilled on the plates. My living situation. This house is quite large for just me, and frankly, the expenses. She pulled out a manila folder. "I've calculated what you owe for room and board over the past 2 years. She slid a sheet of paper across the table. The numbers swam before my eyes. Rent, utilities, food, administrative fees. It totaled more than I'd made in my last year of work. "You can't be serious. I've been more than generous, letting you stay here rent-free while you played nurse. But Norman's gone now, and I have to think practically." She pulled out another document. "This is your 30-day notice to vacate." The paper felt surreal in my hands. An eviction notice from my childhood home. "Presley, I spent everything I had taking care of him. My savings, my retirement fund. That was your choice." Her voice was ice-cold now, all pretense gone. No one forced you to quit your job. No one asked you to hover over him like some martyred saint. He was my father, and he was my husband, but I'm not wallowing in the past. She stood, smoothing her dress. The house goes on the market next week. I've already spoken to a realtor. You're selling Dad's house. I'm selling my house. Norman left everything to me, Brooke. The will was very clear. Jonah and Daisy appeared in the doorway, drawn by our raised voices. Everything okay, Mom? Daisy asked, though her smirk suggested she knew exactly what was happening. Just discussing Brooke's transition plans, Presley said sweetly. She'll be moving out soon. That's probably for the best, Jonah added. Fresh start and all that. Presley laughed, actually laughed, as she headed for the stairs. Oh, Brooke, did you really think this would end any other way? I sat alone in the kitchen, staring at the eviction notice until the words blurred together. 30 days to find somewhere to go with no money, no job, and no family left who cared. That night, I packed my few remaining possessions into boxes. Most of my things had been sold long ago to pay for Dad's care. All I had left were some clothes, a few books, and an old family photo I found tucked in my dresser drawer. It was from Christmas morning, years before Presley. Dad, Mum, and me by the tree, all of us laughing at something I couldn't remember. I traced Dad's face with my finger, and suddenly his final words came rushing back. 8, 7, 4, 9, 2, 1, 1, 7. Remember, Brooke. Maybe it was grief, maybe desperation, but for the first time since his death, I felt something other than emptiness. I felt hope. The Sunset Motel smelled like cigarettes and broken dreams. I sat on the scratchy bedspread, staring at the numbers I'd written on a napkin. 874921 Wainsethvin. 3 days had passed since the funeral, and I'd been turning them over in my mind like a puzzle I couldn't solve. My phone buzzed. Presley. Brooke, darling, I have wonderful news. I've found a buyer for the house already. Cash offer, can you believe it? We're closing next Friday. That's fast. The market's so hot right now, and honestly, I'm ready to move on. Start fresh, you know? Her voice was practically singing. I'll be able to travel, maybe buy that condo in Florida I've been eyeing. What about Dad's things? Oh, I'm donating most of it. No point keeping old furniture and books. Unless there's something specific you want. Though you'll need to pick it up soon. The estate sale company comes Thursday. I hung up and stared at the numbers again. Dad had been so insistent, so urgent. Remember, Brooke? On impulse, I grabbed my laptop and searched for banks in our area. First National Community Trust, Wells Fargo. I tried formatting the numbers different ways. Phone number, Social Security, nothing made sense. Then I remembered something. Dad used to take me to First National when I was little, back when people still went inside banks instead of using ATMs. He'd always made a big deal about it, saying it was important to know your banker personally. I threw on my jacket and drove across town. The bank was busier than I expected for a Tuesday afternoon. I waited in line, rehearsing what I'd say, feeling foolish. What if I was wrong? What if the numbers meant nothing? Next, the teller was young, maybe 25, with kind eyes and a nameplate that read, Poppy. Hi, this might sound strange, but I think my father might have had a safe deposit box here. He passed away recently, and I found some numbers. I'm sorry for your loss. Do you have the box number and a key? I think the number might be 874921 but I don't have a key. Poppy typed into her computer. Let me check. Yes, we do have a box registered under that number. Norman Gray? My heart jumped. Yes, that's my father. Are you listed as an authorized user? I don't know. My name is Brooke Gray. More typing. Yes, you're listed here, but I'll need to see some identification and the death certificate. 20 minutes later, I was following Poppy into the vault, my hands shaking as she inserted her key and waited for me to use Dad's key, which she'd retrieved from a sealed envelope marked with my name. The box was heavier than I expected. Poppy led me to a private room and left me alone. Inside were 3 items: a manila envelope, a leather journal, and a flash drive. I opened the envelope first. Legal documents. A will, dated just 6 months ago, leaving the house and all assets to me. Not Presley, me. My hands trembled as I read it again. This wasn't the will Presley had mentioned. This was different, newer, and it changed everything. The journal was Dad's handwriting, entries dating back 2 years. March 15th. Brooke quit her job today to take care of me. I tried to tell her she didn't have to, but she wouldn't listen. She's so much like her mother, stubborn and loyal to a fault. Presley barely looked up from her magazine when I told her. April 3rd. Caught Presley going through my desk again. She thinks I don't notice, but I'm not as far gone as she believes. Found her on the phone with someone about liquidating assets when she thought I was napping. May 20th. Brooke looks exhausted. She's lost weight, and I heard her crying in the bathroom yesterday. Meanwhile, Presley went to Vegas with her book club. Some book club. The entries got more damning as they continued. Dad documenting Presley's neglect, her financial scheming, her cruel comments about me when she thought he couldn't hear. October 12th. Presley told Daisy I was milking this illness for attention. Said once I'm gone, they'll finally be free of my pathetic daughter too. She doesn't know I was listening from the kitchen. December 1st. Changed my will today. Made sure Brooke gets everything. Presley has no idea. Neither does Brooke. I'll tell her when the time is right. The final entry was dated just a week before he died. I'm running out of time. Brooke deserves to know the truth about what kind of woman she's been living with. The flash drive has everything. Bank records, emails, recordings. I've been documenting Presley's plans for months. If something happens to me before I can tell Brooke, at least she'll have proof. I plugged the flash drive into my laptop with shaking fingers. Folders full of documents appeared. Bank statements showing Presley had been siphoning money from Dad's accounts. Email chains with lawyers about expediting the probate process. Audio recordings of phone conversations where she laughed about getting rid of the dead weight once Dad was gone. In one recording, I heard Daisy's voice. "Are you sure she won't contest anything?" "Please," Presley's voice was crystal clear. "Brooke's too broken down to fight. 2 years of playing nursemaid has destroyed her spirit. She'll take whatever scraps we throw her and be grateful." My phone rang. Presley again. "Brooke, I forgot to mention, the buyer wants to do a final walkthrough tomorrow. You'll need to be completely moved out by then. I hope that little motel is working out for you." "Actually, Presley, I need to ask you something." "Of course, dear. What is it?" I looked at the will in my hands, at Dad's journal, at the evidence of her betrayal spread across the table. "Did Dad ever mention a safe deposit box to you?" Silence. Then, "A what? No, why would he? Norman wasn't the type to keep secrets." "Just wondering. I'll talk to you soon." "Oh, you don't need to worry about staying in touch, Brooke. I know how busy you'll be getting your life back together." After she hung up, I sat in that small bank room, surrounded by the truth Dad had left me. Presley thought she'd won. She thought I was broken, defeated, ready to disappear quietly into whatever sad life she imagined for me. She had no idea what was coming. I carefully packed everything back into the box, my mind already working. I had 6 days before the house closing, 6 days to turn the tables on the woman who'd stolen my father's final years and tried to steal my future. Time to show Presley what a broken daughter could really do. Clara's law office was nothing fancy, a converted house downtown with creaky floors and mismatched furniture. But when she opened the door and saw me standing there with a box of documents, her expression shifted from surprise to concern in seconds. "Brooke, oh my God, I heard about your dad. I'm so sorry I couldn't make it to the funeral. I was in court all day." She pulled me into a hug. "You look terrible. When's the last time you ate?" "I need a lawyer, Clara, and I need someone I can trust." We'd been best friends since 3rd grade, back when she was the scrappy kid who defended me from bullies, and I was the quiet one who helped her with homework. She'd gone to law school while I'd stayed home to help Dad after Mom died. Different paths, but the bond never broke. "Come in, tell me everything." I spread Dad's documents across her conference table, the real will, the journal entries, printouts from the flash drive. Clara's eyes widened as she read, her lawyer mask slipping to reveal the anger underneath. "Jesus, Brooke, this is fraud, multiple counts, and elder abuse." She looked up at me. "How long has this been going on?" "Based on the bank records, at least 18 months. She's been moving money into accounts under her name, forging Dad's signature on documents. Look at this." I showed her an email chain between Presley and someone named Richard at a financial planning firm. "She was planning this before Dad even got sick," Clara said, reading over my shoulder. "She knew he was going to leave everything to you, so she started moving assets." "Can we stop the house sale?" "Absolutely. This will invalidate whatever document she's been waving around. But Brooke," Clara's voice got serious, "this is going to get ugly. Presley's not going to go down quietly, and she's got connections in this town. Her book club friends, the country club crowd, they have influence." "I don't care about her friends." "You should. One of them is married to Judge Morrison. Another one's husband owns the biggest real estate firm in town. Presley's been playing the grieving widow perfectly. People are going to be shocked when this comes out." My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Detective Marcus Evans with the County Sheriff's Office. Clara Hughes asked me to contact you about a potential fraud case. Can we meet tomorrow at 2 p.m? "You called the police?" "I called Marcus. He's good people. We went to high school together. He specializes in white-collar crime, and he's not impressed by country club connections." Clara leaned back in her chair. "But he's going to want to see everything, and he'll probably want to record your statement." "What about the house closing?" "We'll file an injunction tomorrow morning. That'll stop the sale until we can sort this out legally. But Marcus needs to see the evidence first. If there's a criminal case, that takes priority." The next afternoon, I sat across from Detective Marcus in an interview room that smelled like burnt coffee and industrial cleaner. He was younger than I'd expected, maybe 40, with intelligent eyes and a no-nonsense demeanour. "Walk me through the timeline," he said, setting up a recording device. "Start with when your father got sick." I told him everything: the 2 years of caregiving, the financial strain, Presley's absence, the eviction notice, finding the safe deposit box. He took notes, occasionally asking for clarification. "These bank records show systematic theft," he said, flipping through the documents. "And these recorded conversations. Your stepmother was remarkably careless. She thought Dad was too sick to notice, and I was too broken to fight back." "Were you? Broken, I mean?" The question caught me off guard. Yes, I felt like it. I gave up everything for him, and when he died, I had nothing left." "But you're here now, fighting back." "Dad left me the tools to fight. I'm just using them." Marcus nodded approvingly. "The recordings are particularly damning. In one of them, she explicitly discusses hiding assets from probate. That's a felony." He closed the file. "I'll need to interview her and her children. Can you set up a meeting without tipping them off?" "The house closing is Friday. Everyone will be there. Presley, Jonah, Daisy, the real estate agents, lawyers." "Perfect! We'll crash that party." He stood up. "Brooke, I have to ask, are you prepared for what's coming? Once we move on this, there's no going back. Your step-family is going to hate you. The whole town's going to be talking." "They already hate me, and I stopped caring what people think the day Presley handed me that eviction notice." That evening, Clara called with an update. The injunction's filed. The closing can't proceed until the court resolves the will dispute. But I got some interesting information about your stepfamily's finances. What kind of information? Jonah's been unemployed for 6 months, but somehow afforded a new BMW last month. Daisy just put a down payment on a condo in Miami, and Presley's been house hunting in Florida, places way above what she should be able to afford on her income. They were spending Dad's money before he was even dead. Looks like it. Marcus is going to love this. Clara paused. Brooke, are you sure you want to go through with this? We could probably negotiate a settlement, avoid the public spectacle. No settlements, no negotiations. They wanted to destroy me, Clara. They thought I was too weak to fight back. I looked at the family photo on my nightstand, the last remnant of my old life. Time to show them how wrong they were. Okay then, Friday it is. Just be ready. This is going to change everything. I hung up and stared out the motel window at the neon sign flickering in the darkness. Change everything. Good. The life I'd been living was over anyway. Time to build something new from the ashes, something that would make Dad proud. I knocked on the front door of my childhood home like a stranger. When Presley answered, her face cycled through surprise, annoyance, and finally settled on condescending pity. Brooke, what are you doing here? I thought you'd moved on by now. I came to get a few more things, if that's okay. She stepped aside, and I walked into the living room where Dad's chair used to sit. It was gone, replaced by some modern monstrosity that looked like it belonged in a furniture showroom. I hope you don't mind. I've been redecorating. The old furniture was so depressing. Presley followed me, her heels clicking on the hardwood. How's the motel treating you? It's fine. Temporary. Of course it is. You'll land on your feet, I'm sure. You're resourceful. Her tone suggested she thought I was anything but. Coffee? Sure. In the kitchen, she bustled around making coffee while I sat at the table where she'd handed me the eviction notice. Everything looked different. New curtains, new dishes, even new appliances. You've been busy, I said. Well, I couldn't live surrounded by reminders forever. Norman would want me to be happy. She set a mug in front of me. Speaking of which, I have wonderful news. The house closes tomorrow. Cash buyer, no contingencies. I'll finally be able to start fresh. That's great for you. It really is. And between you and me, she leaned in conspiratorially. The buyer offered $20,000 over asking price. Can you believe it? Norman always said this place was worth more than people realized. I nodded, taking a sip of coffee. Where will you go? Florida, I think. Daisy found me the most adorable condo near the beach. 2 bedrooms, ocean view, community pool. It'll be perfect for entertaining. Sounds expensive. Oh, Norman left me very comfortable. He was always so responsible with money. She smiled sweetly. Not like some people who blow their savings on. Well, you know. The dig was subtle but clear. I was the irresponsible one who'd wasted my money caring for my dying father. Where are Jonah and Daisy? Jonah's at work. He got a promotion, you know. Account manager at that big marketing firm downtown. And Daisy's apartment hunting. She's thinking of moving to Miami permanently. Things are really working out for everyone. They are. Presley's smile was radiant. It's like Norman's death freed us all to live our best lives. I know that sounds terrible, but he was suffering so much at the end. We all were, watching him fade away like that. Right, all of us. You especially, of course. You gave up so much. She reached across the table and patted my hand. But maybe this is a blessing in disguise. A chance for you to rediscover who you are outside of being a caregiver. Maybe. Have you thought about what you'll do? Job-wise, I mean. I'm exploring options. Well, don't wait too long. The longer you're out of the workforce, the harder it gets. Employers don't like gaps, you know. She stood up, clearly ready for me to leave. What did you need to get? Just some photos from Dad's office, if they're still there. Oh, I boxed up all that old stuff. It's in the garage. Help yourself, but be quick about it. The cleaning service comes this afternoon. In the garage, I found 3 boxes labelled Norman's Junk in Presley's neat handwriting. I opened them slowly, finding Dad's college diplomas, old business awards, family photos spanning decades. At the bottom of the last box, I found what I was really looking for, his old voice recorder, the one he'd used for work notes. I pocketed it and selected a few random photos to maintain my cover story. "Find what you needed?" Presley asked when I returned. "Yes, thank you." "Good. Well, I hate to rush you, but I have a million things to do before tomorrow. The closing is at 10, then I'm meeting with the moving company." "Of course, I should go." At the front door, she stopped me with a hand on my arm. "Brooke, I want you to know, despite everything, I hope you find happiness. Norman loved you so much, and I know he'd want you to move forward." "Thank you, Presley. That means a lot. And if you ever need a reference or anything, well, I'd be happy to tell people what a dedicated daughter you were." "I appreciate that." She hugged me, actually hugged me, and for a moment I almost felt guilty about what was coming. Almost. "Take care of yourself, dear, and don't be a stranger." I walked to my car, knowing she was watching from the window. As I drove away, I pulled out my phone and called Clara. "How did it go?" "Perfect. She's completely confident. Told me all about her Florida condo and Daisy's Miami apartment. Oh, and Jonah got promoted to account manager. Interesting, since his LinkedIn still shows him as unemployed. She also mentioned the buyer offered $20,000 over asking. Even more interesting, since the listing shows it as a standard offer at asking price. I turned into a parking lot and pulled out Dad's voice recorder. "Clara, I need you to listen to something." I played back the conversation I'd just recorded. Presley admitting to the over-asking offer, discussing her expensive Florida plans, casually mentioning Jonah's supposed promotion. "She just confessed to lying about the sale price," Clara said. "That's probably money laundering on top of everything else." "Is Marcus ready for tomorrow?" "He's been ready since Tuesday. The question is, are you?" I looked back toward the house where I'd grown up, where Dad had died, where Presley was probably already planning how to spend his money. "I've been ready since the day she handed me that eviction notice." "Okay then, tomorrow at 10 a.m. we end this." "Clara?" "Yeah? Thank you for believing me, for helping me fight back. That's what friends do, Brooke. Besides, I never liked Presley anyway. She always looked at people like they were beneath her. Well, tomorrow she's going to find out what it feels like to be beneath someone else." I hung up and drove back to the motel, already planning what I'd wear to watch Presley's world collapse. Something Dad would have been proud to see me in. The real estate office buzzed with anticipation. Presley sat at the head of the conference table like a queen holding court, her designer suit immaculate, her smile brilliant. Jonah and Daisy flanked her, both dressed like they were attending a celebration rather than a business meeting. "I can't believe this day is finally here," Presley said to the buyer, a nervous-looking man named Tristan who kept checking his phone. "Norman would be so happy to know the house is going to someone who will appreciate it." The real estate agent, a woman with perfectly styled hair and a clipboard full of documents, nodded enthusiastically. "It's such a beautiful property. You're getting a real gem, Mr. Martin." "The neighbourhood's only going to get better," Jonah added. "Property values are skyrocketing." I sat in the corner, quiet and unnoticed, wearing the same black dress from the funeral. To everyone else, I looked like the grieving daughter who'd come to say goodbye to her childhood home. Which, in a way, I was. "Brooke," Presley noticed me for the first time. "How sweet of you to come. I know this must be emotional for you." "It is," I said softly. "Dad loved this house." "He did, but he'd want us to move forward, wouldn't he?" She turned back to the buyer. "My stepdaughter was Norman's primary caregiver these past 2 years. Such a devoted girl." Daisy leaned over to whisper something to Jonah, and they both smirked, probably joking about how pathetic I looked. The probate lawyer, Andrea, shuffled through her papers. "I have all the documents here. The will is straightforward. Everything goes to Mrs. Presley Gray as the surviving spouse. Norman was very clear about his wishes," Presley said, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. "He wanted to make sure I was taken care of." "Of course he did," I said. "Dad always put family first." At exactly 10:15 there was a knock on the conference room door. The real estate agent looked annoyed. "We're in the middle of a closing," she called out. The door opened anyway. Clara walked in, followed by Detective Marcus and another officer I didn't recognize. "I'm sorry to interrupt," Clara said, her voice professional and calm. "I'm Clara Hughes, attorney for Brooke Gray. We need to halt this proceeding immediately." The room went dead silent. Presley's face drained of colour. "What's the meaning of this?" Andrea demanded. "There's been a significant development regarding Mr. Norman Gray's estate," Clara continued. She placed a document on the table. "This is an injunction stopping the sale of this property pending resolution of a will dispute." "Will dispute?" Presley's voice was shrill. "There's no dispute. Norman left everything to me." "Actually, Mrs. Gray, we have evidence of a more recent will that tells a different story." Clara nodded to Marcus, who stepped forward. "I'm Detective Marcus Evans. Mrs. Gray, I need to ask you some questions about your late husband's finances." "I don't understand what's happening," Presley said, but her eyes were darting around the room like a trapped animal. "Mom, what's going on?" Daisy's voice was tight with panic. Marcus pulled out a folder. "We have evidence suggesting systematic theft from Mr. Norman Gray's accounts, forged documents, and conspiracy to defraud his estate." "That's ridiculous." Jonah stood up. "You can't just barge in here and—" "Actually, we can." Marcus's voice was steel. "Especially when we have recordings of conversations discussing the concealment of assets from probate proceedings." I watched Presley's face crumble as the reality hit her. Her perfect plan, her confident victory, all of it falling apart in real time. "Brooke," she said, turning to me with desperate eyes, "tell them this is all a misunderstanding. You know I loved Norman. You know I'd never—" "Actually, Presley, I know exactly what you'd do." I stood up, and suddenly I wasn't the broken, defeated woman she thought she'd destroyed. "I know because Dad left me everything. The real will, the bank records, the recordings of you planning to get rid of the dead weight." "You little bitch," Daisy hissed. "You planned this whole thing." "I didn't plan anything. I just used what Dad left me." I looked directly at Presley. "He knew what you were doing. He knew what you really thought of him, of me. He documented everything." "The safe deposit box," Presley whispered. "The one you didn't know about? The one with the real will leaving the house to me? The one with recordings of you laughing about how broken I was? How easy it would be to get rid of me?" Marcus stepped forward. "Mrs. Gray, you're under arrest for elder fraud, theft, and conspiracy. You have the right to remain silent." "This is insane!" Presley shrieked as the handcuffs clicked into place. "She's lying! She's making this up because she's jealous!" "Mom," Daisy was crying now, her perfect makeup running down her cheeks. "The recordings don't lie, Mrs. Gray," Marcus said calmly. "Neither do the bank records showing you transferred over $200,000 into accounts under your name." The buyer, Tristan, was backing toward the door. "I think I'll call you later about the house." "There won't be a house sale," Clara said. "The property belongs to Brooke now." As they led Presley away, she turned back to me one last time. "You think you've won? You think this makes you better than me? Ah, no, Presley. This makes us even." The room emptied quickly after that. The real estate agent gathered her papers with shaking hands. Andrea mumbled something about needing to review the new will. Jonah and Daisy huddled together, whispering frantically about lawyers and bail money. Soon it was just Clara and me in the conference room. "How do you feel?" she asked. I looked around the room where Presley had been so confident just an hour ago, where she'd sat like a queen dividing up her conquered kingdom. Like I can finally breathe again. The news spread through town like wildfire. By evening, my phone was buzzing with calls from reporters, neighbours, and people I hadn't heard from in years. I turned it off and sat in Dad's chair, my chair now, watching through the living room window as cars slowed down to gawk at the house where the Gray family scandal had unfolded. Clara knocked on the door around 7, carrying Chinese takeout and a bottle of wine. "Figured you might not feel like cooking," she said, setting the bags on the kitchen table. "How are you holding up?" "It's surreal. This morning I was homeless. Tonight I'm sitting in my own house eating lo mein." Justice has a way of moving fast once it gets rolling. Clara opened the wine. "Marcus called. Presley's been charged with elder fraud, theft, forgery and conspiracy. Bail set at 50,000. "Will she make it?" "Doubtful. Turns out most of her liquid assets were your dad's money, and those accounts are frozen pending investigation." Clara handed me a glass. "Jonah and Daisy are scrambling to find a lawyer, but word is getting out about their involvement." As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, then another, and another. "Don't look at those," Clara warned. "Social media's going crazy. Someone recorded video of Presley being arrested and posted it online, but I was already scrolling through the messages. Most were supportive, people saying they'd always suspected something was off about Presley, that they'd seen how devoted I was to Dad. But mixed in were uglier messages, people calling me vindictive, saying I'd destroyed a grieving widow out of spite. "Brooke, put the phone down. Listen to this one. Your stepmother may have made mistakes, but at least she didn't abandon her family like you're doing now." I looked up at Clara. Abandon her family? She threw me out. "People believe what they want to believe. Presley played the perfect widow for 3 years. Some folks aren't ready to accept they were fooled." The doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Daisy standing on the porch, her eyes red and swollen. Should I answer it? "Your house, your choice." I opened the door. Daisy looked smaller somehow, diminished without her usual confidence. "Can I come in?" "What do you want, Daisy?" "To talk, please, just 5 minutes." Against my better judgment, I let her in. She stood in the living room, looking around like she'd never seen the place before. "It looks different," she said. I put Dad's furniture back. "Right, of course." She twisted her hands together. "Brooke, I need you to know. I didn't know how bad it was. The stealing, the forged documents. I thought Mum was just managing things." "You thought she was managing things when she handed me an eviction notice the day after Dad's funeral?" Daisy flinched. "That was wrong. I know that now. But you have to understand, Mum was grieving too. She wasn't thinking clearly. She was thinking clearly enough to plan a Florida vacation with Dad's money." "She's still my mother, Brooke. Whatever she did, she's still family. And Dad was my father. But that didn't stop you from treating him like a burden." "We visited. We called." "You visited twice in 2 years, Daisy. Twice. And both times you spent more time on your phone than talking to him." Tears started flowing down her cheeks. "I was scared, okay? Seeing him like that, so sick and confused. It terrified me. I didn't know how to handle it." "So you left me to handle it alone?" "Yes, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Brooke, but please, can't we work something out? Mum's going to prison. Jonah lost his job because of the scandal. I had to give up the Miami apartment. We've lost everything." "You've lost everything you stole. The house, though. It's been in our family for 5 years. It's where we became a family. It was in my family for 32 years before Presley showed up. Daisy's tears turned to anger. So this is revenge? You're going to destroy us all because you're bitter about Dad choosing Mum over your dead mother. The words hit like a slap. Get out! Brooke, please! Get out of my house now! After Daisy left, I sat in the kitchen with Clara, both of us quiet. You okay? Clara asked finally. She called my mother my dead mother, like she was nothing, like she didn't matter. Daisy's desperate. People say ugly things when they're cornered. Maybe, or maybe that's how she really sees it. I took a sip of wine. Clara, what if I'm becoming someone I don't like? What if this revenge thing is changing me into something ugly? Are you having second thoughts? No, but I keep thinking about what Dad would say if he could see all this. The arrests, the media circus, the family torn apart. Clara was quiet for a long moment. You want to know what I think? I think your dad spent his last 2 years watching the woman he married steal from him while his daughter sacrificed everything to care for him. I think he left you those documents because he wanted justice, not just for himself, but for you. But at what cost? Brooke, 3 days ago you were homeless and broke, convinced you were worthless. Tonight you're sitting in your own house, financially secure, with the truth finally out in the open. If that's not justice, I don't know what is. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Marcus. Brooke, we found something else. Presley had a second set of books hidden in her bedroom. Looks like she was planning to disappear to the Cayman Islands once the house sale went through. We're talking about international money laundering now. I hung up and looked at Clara. She was going to run, take Dad's money and disappear. And leave you with nothing but debt and eviction notices. So this isn't just about revenge anymore. It never was, Brooke. This is about stopping a predator who saw your family as prey. Outside, another car slowed down to stare at the house. Let them look. Let them judge. I was exactly where I belonged, in my father's house, protecting his legacy, making sure the truth survived even if the family didn't. Some things were worth fighting for, even if the fight left scars. The cemetery was quiet except for the sound of wind through the oak trees. I knelt beside Dad's headstone, brushing away fallen leaves and placing fresh flowers in the small vase. Hey, Dad, thought you'd want to know how everything turned out. I pulled out his leather journal, the one from the safe deposit box, and opened to the final entry I'd never read aloud before. Listen to this. If Brooke is reading this, it means I'm gone, and she's found the truth. I'm sorry I couldn't tell her while I was alive, but I was too weak, too ashamed that I'd let Presley fool me for so long. My daughter deserves better than the scraps they plan to throw her. She deserves justice, and she deserves to know that her father's love was real, even when everything else was a lie. A tear dropped onto the page. Even now, weeks after finding it, Dad's words hit me like a punch to the chest. The trial starts next month, I continued. Presley's lawyer tried to get her a plea deal, but Marcus says the evidence is too strong. She's looking at 5 to 10 years. Jonah and Daisy are cooperating with prosecutors in exchange for reduced charges, but their reputations are shot. Jonah's new job fired him when the story broke. Daisy had to move back in with her aunt in Ohio. I closed the journal and sat back on my heels. I keep wondering if you'd be proud of what I did, or if you'd think I went too far. Clara says you left me those documents because you wanted me to fight back. But sometimes I wonder if you just wanted me to know the truth, not necessarily destroy them with it. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. I saw your story online. My stepmother did something similar to my family. Thank you for showing that we don't have to just take it. Sarah. It was the 20th message like that this week. After the local news picked up the story, it had gone viral on social media. Justice for Brooke was trending for 3 days. People were sharing their own stories of family betrayal, financial abuse, and fighting back against manipulative relatives. I never expected that, Dad. All these people reaching out, saying they felt less alone because of what happened to us. Maybe that's worth something. I stood up and walked to the bench nearby, the same one where Dad and I used to sit when we visited Mom's grave. Now they were buried side by side, the way it should have been all along. My phone rang. Clara. How's the cemetery visit going? Peaceful. I needed to talk to him about everything. Good timing. I just got off the phone with the prosecutor. Presley's lawyer wants to meet. They're ready to discuss full restitution in exchange for a lighter sentence. How much lighter? 3 years instead of 8. Plus, she'd have to pay back every cent she stole with interest. And she'd be banned from contesting the will or making any claim on your father's estate. I watched a cardinal land on Dad's headstone, bright red against the grey granite. What do you think? I think it's your choice, Brooke. You've already won. The house is yours, the money's been recovered, and everyone knows the truth. The question is whether you want justice or revenge. What's the difference? Justice gives you closure and moves you forward. Revenge keeps you tied to the past. The cardinal flew away, disappearing into the oak trees. Set up the meeting. You sure? Dad didn't leave me those documents to destroy Presley. He left them to save me. Mission accomplished. That evening, I sat in Dad's office, my office now, writing. Not legal documents or victim impact statements, but something else entirely. A blog post titled, "When Family Isn't Family, How I Fought Back Against Financial Elder Abuse." I wrote about the warning signs I'd missed, the red flags other families should watch for. I wrote about the importance of having trusted friends like Clara, honest professionals like Marcus, and the courage to fight even when you feel broken. But mostly, I wrote about Dad, about his love, his sacrifice, and his final gift of truth that saved me from a life of believing I was worthless. The post went live at midnight. By morning, it had been shared 10,000 times. My phone rang. A producer from a national morning show wanted to interview me about elder abuse awareness. A publisher was interested in turning my story into a book. 3 different lawyers wanted to discuss class action suits against financial predators who target grieving families. I turned off the phone and walked through the house room by room. Dad's furniture was back where it belonged. Mum's pictures were on the mantel again. The walls held memories of a real family, not Presley's sterile showroom version. In the kitchen, I made coffee using Dad's old mug, the one that said, "World's Best Dad," that I'd given him for Father's Day when I was 12. Presley had hidden it away, probably embarrassed by its simplicity. As I sat at the table where Presley had handed me that eviction notice, I realized something had shifted. The anger that had driven me for weeks was gone, replaced by something quieter, but stronger. Peace. Not the peace of forgetting, but the peace of knowing I'd honored my father's memory and protected his legacy. The peace of understanding that sometimes love means fighting back, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. I raised the coffee mug in a small toast. Thanks, Dad, for everything, but especially for teaching me that family isn't about blood or marriage certificates. It's about who shows up when everything falls apart. Outside, the sun was rising over the neighborhood where I'd grown up, where I'd lost everything, and where I'd found myself again, home.